The video I made focused on the Glassdoor rankings of the 10 largest employers in the digital procurement and supply chain sector. Got some real interest last month, a lot of very interesting feedback, and I found it a very useful exercise to look at how these organisations are perceived by their current and past employees. So we decided to turn the spotlight on a number of the best of breed companies in the space, startups and scale-ups, and that made for some very, very interesting reading. So here's what we found, and later on I'll tell you who came out on top and who came down the bottom, unfortunately. But the first thing to note is that we looked at organisations like Globality, Visible, Vendor, Tilbook, Gatekeeper, Roster Analytics, a number of organisations on both sides of the Atlantic, and it made for some really interesting results. So point one, the rankings were much more widely spread than those 10 biggest ones, who all performed generally pretty well. And there's an awful lot more volatility in some of the scores. Now, that may be to do with the smaller sample size and the fact that, a handful of people giving a sort of review in response to a particularly positive or negative moment in an organisation's history can skew the rankings. And it's certainly worth bearing that in mind when you're looking at these companies as a potential employer, because there may have been a particular point in time where things went one way or another, and that might not necessarily be representative of the organisation as it stands now. So it's worth certainly bearing that in mind. But what we saw was quite a wide range of performance, but still a lot of the companies I've mentioned came out very, very well. Now, the one that came out on top was the CLM specialist Gatekeeper. They had 5-star overall, 4.8, 4.9, 5 stars in all the key categories like DE&I, culture, work-life balance. And their CEO, Patrick O'Connor, got 100% approval. And I'm pleased to say he spent some time with me a couple of weeks ago where I interviewed him to ask him how he's engineered such a wonderful culture that so many of his employees are so happy. And watch out for that video being published in a couple of weeks' time. Unfortunately, the company that came at the very bottom of those that I looked at, so it's not everyone in the sector, it's an important caveat, but for those that I looked at, which is about a dozen, was Roster, and they, I think, came out at about 2.7 overall, which obviously is not a great look for them. So hopefully they can do something about that and improve their position in the not too distant future. But if you want to see the overall data for all these organisations, please do get in touch. We've got that in a spreadsheet we can share. And if you want some more insight yourself about your own career choices, or perhaps you want to think about whether you can improve your own culture, then watch that video with Patrick and get in touch with me. You can get me and my colleagues at everyday.com, and me is Andrew at everyday.com. Thank you. Hope you found this useful. Look forward to hearing from you.